It's a truly universal human experience. I mean, you spend days, maybe even weeks, preparing for this one massive moment. Oh,
Oh, for sure. The buildup is just agonizing.
right, like you've got your outfit perfectly picked out. You've meticulously memorized every line of your resume. You've practically, practiced your handshake in the bathroom mirror.
We have all been there.
And then you walk into the room, you sit down, and the person across the table looks at you and asks a completely basic, entirely expected question. Now, what happens?
Total system failure.
Exactly. Your brain just completely and utterly flatlines. You are suddenly a deer in the headlights of your own life.
It's basically the absolute definition of your mind just going completely blank at the worst possible second. I mean, the cognitive overload is so intense that basic biographical facts just evaporate.
They really do. Well, welcome to today's deep dive, where we are tackling that exact feeling of terror and, honestly, more importantly, how to permanently dismantle it. Today, we have a really fascinating piece of source material to look at.
Yeah, this one was super interesting to dig into.
It really was. It's a transcript from the English Leap podcast. On its surface, this is a resource aimed at B1 and B2 English language learners, specifically focusing on job interview English.
Right, it's technically a language lesson.
Exactly. But as we were reading through this, we realized something far more profound was happening. The psychological insights buried inside this lesson apply to absolutely anyone, native speaker or not, who has ever felt that sudden spike of panic in a high-stakes conversation.
Yeah, because the linguistic barrier they're addressing in the source is actually just a proxy for a much larger psychological barrier that, we all face under pressure.
Mhm.
When you are learning a second language, you're hyper aware of how you construct your thoughts. You have to be intentional. But what this source proves is that native speakers often lack that intentionality. We just rely on instinct, and, well, instinct entirely fails us when our adrenaline spikes.
The source perfectly captures this. When the candidate, in their scenario, this guy named Jake, is asked a basic interview question. He admits that the moment the question is asked, his brain just says, panic, everything all at once.
Oh man, Jake. I felt for Jake in that moment.
Right. It's not that he doesn't know the vocabulary, it's just the absolute crush of the moment. Okay, let's unpack this. Because the core thesis of this source material is a brilliant diagnosis of this exact problem.
It really hits the nail on the head.
Yeah. The issue isn't that you don't know the facts about your own life. You know where you worked. You know what you did. The real problem is, as they put it, a matager. Nobody showed me the shape of a good answer problem.
I love that. That phrasing is so precise, the shape of an answer.
The shape, right.
Because when you're sitting in that chair staring at the interviewer, you have all this raw data floating around in your head, right? You have your years of experience, your personal quirks, your financial anxieties.
Oh, definitely the financial anxieties.
Exactly, your ambitions. All of it is just swirling together in this big cloud. But raw data is totally useless if you don't have a container to pour it into.
And the goal of our deep dive today is to map out that exact shape. We want to give you the blueprint so that you can walk into your next high-stakes conversation, whether that's a job interview, a pitch to a client, or, a performance review, feeling totally in control of the structure of your thoughts.
Which is such an empowering place to be in.
It really is. But before we get into the specific questions, we have to move away from this state of total performance anxiety. There's a massive sigh of relief early in the source material regarding the fundamental mindset shift that has to happen before you even walk through the door.
Yeah, this part is crucial.
The hosts point out that interviewers are not grading your grammar like some strict teacher with a red pen. They are not expecting a flawless robotic performance.
No, not at all.
What they're actually checking for is whether you are clear, calm, and prepared.
Which completely lowers the stakes in a really healthy way, I think. The source makes it clear a small mistake isn't the end of the interview. You can pause. You can use simple sentences. You can even, stumble over a word.
Right, which everyone does anyway.
Exactly. None of that costs you the job. What actually hurts you is freezing completely, or conversely, rambling aimlessly for 2 straight minutes out of sheer nervousness.
It actually kind of reminds me of taking a driving test.
Oh, how so?
Like, when you're a teenager taking that test, you are terrified of every little movement. You think the instructor is just looking for perfection. But you don't fail the test for taking an extra second to adjust your rearview mirror or for driving a little under the speed limit while you check a blind spot.
Right. Those are actually good things.
Exactly. Those are just signs that you are being careful and intentional. You fail the test if you completely freeze at a green light while a huge semi-truck is honking behind you, or if you just close your eyes and slam on the gas.
That is a great analogy.
But let me ask you, as an expert who studies communication, is it really true that interviewers just want calm and clear? Or is that just, I don't know, a comforting lie we tell nervous applicants so they don't sweat through their shirts in the lobby?
No, I mean, it is absolutely true, and it gets to the heart of the source's overarching philosophy, which they call same truth, better shape. What's fascinating here is how liberating this framework actually is when you understand the psychology of the person sitting across from you.
The psychology of the interviewer, you mean?
Right. An interviewer is usually fatigued. They might be seeing their fifth candidate of the day. They have serious decision fatigue. They don't want a highly polished fake persona because that requires them to do the mental work of figuring out who you really are beneath the act.
Oh, that makes sense. Like they have to dig through the performance.
Exactly. They want your honest reality. They want the truth of who you are and what you can do, but they desperately need that truth organized in a way that respects their limited cognitive bandwidth and, directly addresses their needs.
So you don't have to invent a new corporate version of yourself.
Not at all.
You just have to put a professional, easily digestible frame around your actual life. And understanding that the interviewer is just an exhausted human trying to make a safe decision perfectly sets up the most notoriously dangerous opening question of any interview. You sit down, you get comfortable, and they hit you with, "Tell me about yourself."
Oh, man. The ultimate trapdoor question.
It really is. It feels like an icebreaker, but it is actually a highly calibrated test.
Yeah, people fall for it all the time.
Our source has this hilarious example where the candidate, Jake, tries to answer this honestly. He says, I grew up in a small town. I have 2 brothers. I used to collect stamps, and I don't love Mondays.
Poor Jake.
I mean, he's not lying. That is all factually true,
Mm-hmm.
but it is completely, entirely useless to a hiring manager.
I actually have to defend Jake a little bit here because I have fallen into this exact same trap.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Early in my career, I was sitting on my first major academic panel, and the moderator asked me to introduce myself. And instead of highlighting my specific research that was actually relevant to the audience, I panicked and basically recited my birth certificate.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes. I talked about where I went to high school, my undergraduate hobbies, my dog. I could literally see the audience's eyes glazing over in real time. It was mortifying.
That is so relatable, though.
But I realized in that moment that they didn't care about my biography. They cared about my utility to the conversation. Jake is answering the literal words being spoken rather than the hidden question beneath them.
And the hidden question is, what trips everyone up?
Precisely. When an interviewer says, "Tell me about yourself," the hidden question is actually, can you summarize yourself clearly, and can you connect your background to this specific role?
So it's a test of focus.
Exactly. They are testing your focus. They're seeing if you understand the context of the room you're in. It's a test of your ability to curate information. If you hand them a mess of irrelevant details, you're signaling that you just don't know how to prioritize information in a professional setting.
Well, the source gives a really clear 3-part formula for the perfect shape of this answer.
Yes, the 3 parts.
Part 1, who you are professionally. Part 2, one relevant skill or experience. And Part 3, what you are looking for. So instead of the stamps in the Mondays, you say, I have 3 years of experience in customer service. I really enjoy helping people solve problems. And I am now looking for a role where I can use my communication skills and keep growing.
Notice how much cognitive relief that provides the interviewer.
Yeah, it's so clean.
It answers their hidden question immediately. You've proved you can focus, you've established your professional identity, and you've anchored your goals entirely to their needs. They don't have to sift through your stamp collection to figure out if you can handle angry customers.
Right. But once you establish who you are, the interviewer usually pivots to the next major hurdle, which is motivation. Why do you want this job?
Ah, yes. The motivation question.
The candidate in the source is brutally honest here. When asked why he wants the job, he says it's because rent exists and it's very persistent about it.
Which is honestly the most relatable answer ever given in a job interview. We have all had that exact thought running on a loop in our heads.
We absolutely have. But let's pause on that, because I actually want to push back on the source's advice for a second.
Let's hear it.
If the whole philosophy we're adopting is same truth, better shape, isn't leaving out the reality of needing a paycheck just a form of masking. I mean, the modern workplace often demands this performative passion. We have to pretend we do the job for free because we just love filing spreadsheets so much. Aren't we hiding who we really are and feeding into a somewhat toxic corporate culture if we pretend we don't care about the salary?
I mean, that's a completely fair critique of modern work culture. But in the context of an interview, it's not about masking or participating in corporate gaslighting. It's about, once again, answering the hidden question.
Okay, what's the hidden question here?
Well, the interviewer is a human being operating in the same economy you are. They know rent exists. They already assume you need money. If you say you want the job for the money, you have told them zero new information.
Right.
You've essentially wasted their time. The hidden question they are really asking is, did you choose this specific job, or did you just apply to any job that pays a wage?
Oh, I see. They want to know if you're running toward them or just running away from being broke.
That is the exact distinction. It's the difference between transactional labor and alignment. If you just need a paycheck, you'll leave the second a slightly larger paycheck comes along. Hiring and training someone is incredibly expensive and time-consuming.
So they want to minimize their risk.
Exactly. So the better shape answer isn't a lie. It's just taking the focus off the universal truth of money and putting it on the specific truth of your fit. The source suggests saying something like, I'm interested in this position because it matches my experience and gives me a chance to grow in a company I respect. Rent is still completely true in the background of your life, but your answer proves you actually research their company and see a long-term alignment.
Proving your motivation is one thing, but establishing your actual competence requires a completely different cognitive trick. Logically, the interviewer is going to pivot to, what are your strengths?
Another question that seems like a softball but is actually a total minefield.
Because people fall into what the source highlights as the laundry list trap. The candidate gets excited to finally sound impressive, so they just rattle off this massive, disjointed list of adjectives. I'm good at talking, I'm good at listening, I remember small details, I stay calm in chaos, I'm a team player, I'm a self-starter.
Yeah, and it just sounds unfocused. It sounds like you're just guessing what they want to hear rather than intimately knowing your own actual value.
It's exactly like walking into a restaurant and looking at the menu. If a diner has a giant neon sign out front that claims they make the best sushi, the best wood-fired pizza, the best authentic tacos, and the greatest clam chowder in town, you doubt all of it.
Oh, absolutely.
You assume they're mediocre at everything because they lack focus. But if you walk into a place and the sign just says, we make amazing sushi, you believe them. You trust the focus.
The source explicitly advises depth over quantity. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, there is a fascinating psychological mechanism at play here regarding cognitive load.
Oh, so?
Well, the human brain is essentially a narrative machine. We process and store information through stories and concrete imagery. When you hand the interviewer a list of abstract adjectives, team player, self-starter, detail-oriented, their brain has no hook to hang those words on. They simply drop the information. What you need instead is a claim and a proof.
Give me an example of how that claim and proof structure sounds in practice.
You start with the claim. One of my strengths is communication. Then you immediately follow it with the proof. I'm comfortable speaking with customers, listening to their problems, and finding clear solutions.
Okay, yeah.
You didn't just name the skill. You painted a brief, vivid picture of what that skill looks like in action. You gave their brain a micronarrative. That takes it from being just a corporate buzzword to being a believable, concrete asset that they can actually remember when they're reviewing their notes later that afternoon.
And that narrative structure becomes a total lifesaver when the interviewer's skepticism inevitably turns toward your flaws. Because once you prove you can do the job, their focus naturally shifts to the risks of hiring you. You
Yeah.
have to completely shift your strategy when they walk into the vulnerability minefield and ask you about your weaknesses.
The dreaded "what is your weakness"
Uh-uh.
question. The instinct is either to lie and use a humble brag like, I work too hard.
Which every hiring manager actively despises.
Exactly. Or people overshare out of sheer panic.
Our candidate in the source, Jake, experiences this exact panic. His immediate instinct is to confess a very specific, terrifying moment. He wants to say, I once forgot a client's name mid-call and completely panicked.
Which is very real and very honest, but as a standalone statement, it's just alarming. You're handing them a snapshot of a disaster without any context.
You can practically hear the interviewer slowly capping their pen and crossing your name off the list.
Right.
But the expert advice here completely dismantles the fear behind this question. The hidden question here is not a trap designed to make you disqualify yourself. They know you aren't perfect. I mean, they aren't perfect either.
They are checking for two highly specific traits: self-awareness and active improvement.
Okay.
Are you self-aware enough to accurately diagnose where your gaps are, and do you have the emotional maturity to take responsibility for fixing them? The strategic move here is to take a static historical confession and transform it into an area of dynamic, ongoing work. A static confession says, "This is who I am." A dynamic answer says, "This is where I am going."
So instead of saying, I get nervous, which sounds like a permanent, unchangeable flaw,
Yeah.
you put it into that better shape. You say, one area I'm working on is speaking more confidently in meetings. I've been practicing by preparing my points beforehand and asking questions when I need clarity.
It's brilliant because it proves you don't just recognize a problem, you have a methodology for solving it. You are self-aware, not self-destructive. You are showing them the actual mechanics of how you learn.
The source uses this same, say it better method to handle other massive red flags, which is incredibly practical. Like, what if you just flat out lack a required skill? If they ask about software and you say, I don't know Excel, that sounds like a slam door. It's a dead end in the conversation.
Yeah, you don't want that.
Right. But the better shape is, I'm still improving my Excel skills, but I'm learning quickly and practicing.
You're maintaining the exact same truth. You aren't an Excel expert, and you aren't lying about it. But the shape leaves the door open to growth.
What about past baggage? This is one that ruins so many otherwise great interviews. If they ask why you left your last role, and the honest truth is, my last job was terrible and my boss was a toxic nightmare.
Oh, that's a tough one.
Right. Saying that out loud, even if it is 100% justified, is incredibly dangerous.
It is lethal to your chances. Because, again, look at the hidden question. They aren't asking for an objective review of your previous employer. They are checking your professionalism, your emotional regulation, and your forward momentum. If you spend your time dragging a past boss, you just sound bitter.
You sound like someone who dwells on conflict.
Exactly. The hiring manager immediately wonders, is this how they're going to talk about me in 6 months?
The better shape completely shifts the timeline from the past to the future. You say, I'm looking for a new environment where I can grow and take on more responsibility. You aren't attacking the past, you're just defining the next step. It's clean, it's professional, and it diffuses the bomb completely.
It removes the emotion from the equation and replaces it with ambition.
Surviving the vulnerability check usually means you are in the home stretch. But those final moments carry, disproportionate weight. We are moving into the climax of the interview, the final tests, and it usually starts with this massive sweeping question: why should we hire you?
It is deeply intimidating because it feels like they are asking you to justify your existence in the professional world.
It really does. And the source points out that because of that immense pressure, candidates usually swing wildly to one of two extremes. They either go way too small and they sound desperate, saying things like, please, I really need a chance to prove myself.
Oh, yeah.
Or they overcompensate and go way too big, sounding arrogant, saying, I am the absolute best person in the world for this job and nobody else can do what I do.
Neither of which answers what the interviewer actually wants to know, which is simply, will you be a highly useful asset to my team?
Here's where it gets really interesting, because the source provides this perfect middle ground. It's confidence, but it is confidence rooted in evidence, not ego. It's connecting your specific experience, your attitude, and what you bring directly to their bottom line. It's not a desperate, please choose me, I need saving. It is a calm, factual, here is exactly why I can help you.
The phrasing the source uses is excellent. They suggest saying, I believe I'm a good fit for this role because I have relevant experience, I learn quickly, and I care about doing the job well.
It's so grounded.
It takes all the heightened emotion right out of the room. It positions you as a professional peer offering a practical solution rather than a subordinate begging the king for a favor. That fundamentally shifts the power dynamic of the entire room.
Positioning as a peer, offering a solution. I love that. And then, just when you think you've crossed the finish line, the interviewer closes their notebook, they smile, and they ask the final question. The ultimate trap. Do you have any questions for us? I will admit my historical instinct and the instinct of Jake in the source is to just wave my hands and say, no, I'm fine. I think you covered everything beautifully.
Which feels like the polite thing to do. It
Yeah.
feels like you are being low maintenance and easy to interview. You don't want to keep them any longer than necessary.
Right. But the source explicitly warns that this is a horribly costly mistake right at the buzzer. Why is being agreeable and low maintenance suddenly a disaster?
Because of the hidden meaning behind the action. When you say, no, I have no questions, what you are actually signaling to the interviewer is that you are not genuinely curious about the daily reality of this job. It signals that you are just trying to survive the interrogation and get out of the building. This question is their final check to see if you are engaged in a mutual evaluation.
A mutual evaluation. Meaning, the narrative shouldn't just be them judging me.
Right.
I should be actively interviewing them just as much as they're interviewing me.
Precisely. If you are going to spend 40 hours a week somewhere, potentially altering the trajectory of your entire career, you should have questions. You must have real questions prepared.
Like what kind of questions?
Asking about the team dynamics, asking what a normal Tuesday looks like, or simply asking about the next steps in the process. It proves that you have the cognitive space to visualize yourself in the role. It proves you actually paying attention to the reality of the work, not just the fantasy of getting an offer. Saying no questions essentially reads as, I am not truly invested in the outcome.
That is a vital warning. So, to bring this all together, by deeply understanding that there's always a hidden question beneath the literal question, and by focusing relentlessly on this philosophy of same truth, better shape, the entire dynamic of these high-pressure scenarios shifts. An interview stops being this terrifying pass-fail interrogation where your brain panics and flatlines at the first sign of pressure. It transforms into a structured, manageable, mutual conversation. Whether you're prepping for a formal job interview or you're just trying to advocate for yourself in a performance review or a high-stakes meeting, you now have the blueprint. You know this shape.
This raises an important question. If we start treating our daily personal conversations with this level of intentionality, like if we focus on the underlying questions someone is asking us rather than just reacting defensively to their literal words, how much unnecessary conflict and misunderstanding could we eliminate from our everyday lives?
Wow, that's a brilliant way to frame it, taking that better shape out of the boardroom and into your living room. Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We highly encourage you to keep exploring these concepts on your own and start looking for the hidden questions in your own life. Until next time, may your truth always find a better shape, and may your brain never, ever flatline at a green light.